So glad that you could join us this morning for this very, very important talk by Diane Wilson. She's flown in from Texas. She'll be here less than even 24 hours just to be able to come and present all the information that she has on microplastics, her 35-year battle with the microplastic and the mega industries that are polluting the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. And so it is a very, very important issue. I should start by telling you a little bit about the Ding Darling Wildlife Society. What we do is we fund the Ding Darling Wildlife Refuge, both the visitor center, all the education, the WOW, the Wildlife on Wheels classroom that goes out into the outlying areas. In fact, we have Melissa Maher, who's our education leader here this morning. Thanks for all you do, Melissa. And we do water research, we do water quality testing, biology. There's just a whole gamut. The lecture series is part of what we also organize and do with the refuge. It is important too to mention that tomorrow is International Women's Day, so having Diane Wilson here is especially important. We do have two supporters who have made this lecture possible. One is a friend of the refuge who would like to be anonymous, and the second one is the Dr. Louise Merriman Perry Conservation Fund for Girls. And of course, Dr. Perry was a resident of the island who was very forward-thinking and wanted to conserve as much real estate as she could on the island so that the wildlife could be protected. And so in 1962, when she passed away, she left in her will that approximately 4 acres, actually a little over 4 acres, down by the Perry Tract that we have was protected for wildlife, and she donated that to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So now you can go out and hike that area and realize that it has been preserved from development forever. So that's a nice, important thing that she has done for us all. I'm just going to show you a little video first, and then we'll have Diane speak.
The J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge of today isn't here by chance. In the early 1940s, J. Norwood Darling, for whom the refuge is now named, was instrumental in the effort to block the sale of environmentally valuable land to developers. Ultimately, at his urging, President Harry S. Truman signed an executive order creating this refuge in 1945. In 1982, the Ding Darling Wildlife Society Friends of the Refuge began. Its purpose was to educate visitors about the importance of protecting lands, waters, and wildlife. In 1999, this group of volunteers stepped up to lead the building of the refuge's Visitor and Education Center. This was the first partnership of its kind, where a Friends group raised money to construct a federal building. And it is still the hub of the refuge today. Why was this necessary? And what is the Society's role today? Well, over the decades, the refuge budget has been cut 60%, and it has half the staff it formerly did. Meanwhile, visitors have increased 66% to nearly 1 million people annually. The refuge cannot meet their growing needs alone. So the Ding Darling Wildlife Society works to fill in the gaps where federal funding falls short. Most importantly, the refuge keeps Ding Darling's spirit alive by educating generation after generation about the importance of conservation, so visitors from around the world will take that knowledge back to the communities where they live. Today, with the help of generous donors, the Society supports the refuge in these primary areas: land acquisition and restoration, advocacy, conservation education, wildlife protection, biology and water quality research, and internships.
What really draws people to Sanibel and the core objective of people is to come and enjoy the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge. I think Ding Darling would just be ecstatic over the fact that there are people that are carrying on his legacy. I mean, he obviously gave from his pocketbook, gave from his heart, but he would be ever so gratified to know that that legacy that he started continues today.
The best legacies are not what you do for yourself today, but what you do for the next generation.
I wanted to be at the refuge because there were things that I could do here. Every time I come to volunteer, I see the important work that's being done by the Ding Darling Wildlife Society. I see the smile on children's faces and families who are enjoying nature and wildlife. It is so wonderful, it really is, to know that all of this work will be protected for the next generation because of the work that the Society has accomplished. Because if we don't do it, who will? Who will do it?
To that end, the Ding Darling Wildlife Society is dedicated to ensuring that Ding's legacy lives on at the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge. We invite you to join us and our thousands of members in supporting the refuge for generations to come.
Before I bring Diane Wilson up to speak, I just wanted to tell you a tiny bit about her, and I know she's going to expand on it. But Diane is a fourth-generation shrimp boat captain from Texas, and she's turned into an activist, a conservationist, just a fighter for rights, and a protector of the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think she ever set out to do that initially. It was forced upon her because of all the pollutants that were being put out by the big industries, and she had to speak up and let everyone know what's being done. And it's been a hard battle, I'm sure. 35 years of battling mega corporations to be taken seriously, that this is truly happening, and it's injuring all of us. In fact, someone just mentioned to me that in the New England Medical Journal this morning, there was a big article on microplastics. I haven't had time to read it yet. It was just texted over to me as I was driving here. But it is in our water, in our landfill, in our fish that we're eating. It's just everywhere, and it's really causing some problems with health and many other areas. So with Diane Wilson, she will probably be, I'll just let you know that she is the recipient of the Goldman Environmental Prize for all of North America, as well as the Lewis Gibb Environmental Lifetime Achievement. So she's very accomplished. She's finally being celebrated for all the wonderful things that she's been doing over the last 35 years and will continue to do for us. So without much ado, I'll introduce Diane Wilson, if you'd like to join us.
Good. As she said, I'm Diane Wilson, fourth generation fisherwoman. My family has lived on the mid-Texas Gulf Coast for around 130 years. So I'm one of those people, you might say, has a sense of place. And I have a real bonding with the bay and the fishing town I'm from. It's called Seadrift. And probably it's so rural and isolated. The only thing it's well known for, and I'm sure y'all know Bonnie and Clyde. You remember them? They used to hide out in my hometown. They really did. So anyway, so I have been fighting the petrochemical plants around our Gulf of Mexico County. It's Calhoun County. It's a very tiny county, and matter of fact, it's probably one of the smallest counties on the coast. And but yet we have all of these tremendous chemical plants. And when I have 5 kids, and I've worked on shrimp boats, I've worked on oystering, shrimping, crabbing, trot lining. I'm a really good net maker. I can really build a shrimp net, and I spent a lot of times working on tore up shrimp nets all the time. And basically, when I was 40 years old, there was it was the first time industry ever had to report to anyone what they were putting out there, air stacks, what they were discharging in the bay, what they were trucking out of their plant, what they were putting in landfills, what they were putting in injection wells, and that was called the toxic release inventory, or the community right to know. And it was because of Bhopal, India, and what happened there. And y'all all probably know the legacy of what happened with Bhopal, India, and the Union Carbide and the pesticide plant that killed thousands of people in one night. So because of that report, in 1989, I was working at a fish house, and I found out, it was front page headlines in a little newspaper, that our county was #1 in the nation for toxic waste to the land. We had half the waste generated in the whole state of Texas. And like I said, this in a county of probably like 12,000 people. So so I am normally a real introvert. I take to the water really where I like the silence, I like solitude, and suddenly I found out we were #1 in the nation for toxins to the land, and also one of the biggest plastic expansion in all of Texas history was just coming in. And that's when I started. 1989, I was 40 years old. I am now 75, 35 years later, and here I am giving you a story about the plastic, how long it took, what you don't know about what's really going on. When I first started in 1989, and when I started asking about plastic, when I started asking about the powder, because it's not just the pellets. I know when people hear a lot on the newspapers, they see the pellets, the nurdles. There's a lot of, I never heard that word nurdle. It was the workers I talked to in the plant. It was always the pellets or the resin, which is the powder. And it's the PVC powder, think of the PVC pipes, and that is the vinyl chloride. You've heard about maybe East Palestine, where all those rail cars dumped and they burnt the vinyl chloride. Well, vinyl chloride is a carcinogen, and it is very instrumental in the production of plastic. So when you are talking about plastics, and specifically from a plastic manufacturer, I know a lot of people, when they hear about microplastics and they hear about plastic, they think about the oceans of trash all over the bays, all over the oceans. You can see it in all of these pictures, and they did videos underwater, and you can see all this plastic. Well, what I have been dealing with is the manufacturing of the plastic before it becomes that. And people have no idea of how much plastic, the pellets and the powder, that is being lost on, especially the Gulf of Mexico states. There's a lot of plastic plants, and now there's even more plastic production being, is being promised. There is no slow up. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plastic that is around Formosa Plastics. It's a 2,500 acre plant. They probably have 3,000 workers. They have one industrial discharge into the bay that puts out like 9 million gallons per day. And they have 10 stormwater outfalls that is supposed to take the rainwater off of the facility. Anyway, so what you see here is, these are pictures I took of the plastic that was in the water. It was in the bays where the fishermen are, where the kids go out and swim, and it's also in the creek, which is kind of like a little bit like a river. And so what you see down here is the powder floating on top. Up there is the plastic. Again, over there is the plastic. And generally it's polyethylene, polypropylene, and PVC powder and pellets. Oh, wait. Wrong. Oh, sorry. Lost my little clicker here. Let's see. Where am I supposed to point? Oh, okay. All right, what you see there is Formosa Plastics, and the water picture is their industrial discharge is in the water, and it's underwater, and it's 9 million gallons per day, and that's where you get plastic powder and plastic pellets, and it's all over Matagorda Bay, which is a 320-mile bay. And what you see over here on the right is outfalls. These are stormwater outfalls. This is when it rains on a plant. You're supposed to have drainage, and it goes off the plant, and it goes into a creek or a body of water. And some of these outfalls, as you'll see on the bottom one, that's outfall, stormwater outfall 8. They're big enough to land a helicopter, and they have got the flow of a river. And to give you an extent of over how much plastic can be discharged in a stormwater, which is supposed to be rainwater. This unit over there, that stormwater is number 6. It had, and it was documented, and that's the reason why I know, is it was in one day out of 26 years and from 10 outfalls, it had 167,000 pounds of pellets in one day going out. And you know how many pellets are in 1 pound? 22,000 pellets. So multiply 22,000 pellets by 167,000 pounds, and you will get an idea of one day. And they've been doing this for 26 years. And this is plastic manufacturing. This is to show you the people that share the bay with these chemical companies. Where these discharges, you have oystermen, you have shrimpers, you have Vietnamese crabbers. These are oystermen here. This is oysterman, Hispanic oysterman, and that's another shrimper down below. These is the area that we were sampling. When, I guess the basic thing is all chemical companies, the plastic manufacturers, they will not admit to discharging plastic. Absolutely deny it. And matter of fact, there was a group in Washington, no, in California, and they were called As We Sow, and their deal was to get plastic manufacturers to admit how much plastic they were discharging. And they wouldn't do it. So they finally went to their shareholders meetings and passed a resolution, and still trying to get the plastic companies to admit how much plastic they were losing. And there was only one company, and they said, we only did 4 pounds in our history. And so anyway, I do remember when they did that, NPR, National Public Radio, they went and had an interview with that company, and they said, in all of their history, only 4 pounds of plastic went out. And so this NPR reporter went and interviewed them, and they said, yeah, we're the Cadillac of plastic companies, and we don't discharge plastic. And so I'm pretty well known as the pellet hunter. Everybody knows that about me. And so they came to me and they said, do you think you can find some plastic from this chemical company? And so I went to the company. I figured out where their stormwater discharges was, because when it floods, that's going to overflow, and you just look at the natural terrain of where that water was going to go, and I followed that, and there was plastic everywhere, like it was, there was rain culverts underneath the major 6-lane highway. There were 2 culverts, and we went through the culverts, and pellets were lined on the edges of the whole culverts, on all of them, because when you got a rise and you got pellets, they stick to those cement culverts for some odd reason. And then you just followed it to the natural creek where they were going, and it was all over the place. So basically, chemical companies probably do not know how many plastics they are discharging, the powder and the pellets, because they're interested in production. They know what they are producing. Like when we had a lawsuit with Formosa, the first thing the lawyer said is, we make 1 trillion pellets a day. So they know exactly of their production, but they have no idea what they're losing. They're losing it in their production units, they're losing it in the equipment, they're losing it in when they're packaging the trains, when they're packaging in the warehouses, they're losing it when they have incidents. There is, during my 35 years, probably I talked with 3 workers a year. So over the years, I've talked with probably 100 workers. And the reason why a worker would talk to me is because they can't talk to the company because they will be fired. If they report an incident, they will lose their bonuses. They can't go to the local, the mayors or the city council, because they have contracts with the company. The mayor works for Formosa, so they can't go there. They can't go to the state agencies or the federal agencies. I had the state inspectors, when I was in there one day going through some files, they pulled me aside and took me to their filing cabinet, pulled out a file. It said, you do something with it, because it goes up to a bottleneck and it stops, and we don't want to know what is going on there. But it's like, you do something. And it was all this major contamination all over that plant. And they couldn't do anything with it. So that is why a worker where there is no protection, it's not union, so they can get fired, so they eventually come to me And that is probably where I got most of my most important information. And one thing I did get from one of the workers in like the SPVC, which is a specialized polyvinyl chloride powder, is the upsets. And he sent me probably 50 photographs of these upsets. They had units that were 5 stories and they were open and it was just going everywhere and there was powder that thick. And he said this was happening once a week and he tried to do something with it and was fired. But anyway, so needless to say, there was powder and pellets everywhere. And these little colored dots, these are the places. I probably had 3 workers from the plant and myself. And when we asked them, how much plastic are you losing? And I was in a meeting with probably about 20 guys in suits. You know, I call them the suits, and they were unit, they were upper management. And I said, and I had already kind of seen the plastic. And I said, how much plastic are you losing? And they looked at me and said, we are not losing a single pellet because we sell every bit of it. That was their answer. And so when we tried and got nowhere with the state, with the feds, with the agencies, with the company, there is a special provision of the Clean Water Act, and it's if the feds in the state does nothing, then a citizen has a right to file a citizen lawsuit, Clean Water Act. And so there were, like I said, there was probably 4 of us altogether, and for 2.5 years, we went out every day, rain or blazing almost in the middle of a hurricane, and started looking for pellets and our powder, and we would put it in little baggies, and we would write the time, the date, where we collected it, and anyway, so that's where you see all of those different places. Where did I do? Okay. I'm crazy about this. Okay. All right. So this far right is what that worker in the SPVC sent me, and that was one of their upsets, and that was the 5th story, and that's powder, vinyl chloride. It's got vinyl chloride in it. This one on the far left, it's in the units. So you got 2,500 acres, you got 17 units, warehouses, railroad tracks, holding ponds. This is the plastic, the powder, probably a mixture of powder and pellets in the drainage ditches. These are stormwater drainages, and they go to the creek. Down here, this is PVC powder, and it's on the railroads. You cannot believe the amount of powder that is on the railroad tracks. And over here, you see that white-looking little pyramid? That's PVC pellets taken from one of those railway cars. It's just kind of laying out there on the ground. This is another one of the photographs from that SPVC supervisor, and these are little drainage holes, and it's in the unit, and it goes down and it goes to the stormwater outfalls, and that's plastic, and you even see those crazy little strips that look like straws. That's in the process they make strange looking material, you know, like there's these reactors and they make this combination. It's kind of like building a cake. And this PVC supervisor, he was telling me, he said in these reactors that you're supposed to have powder, so to make an SPVC powder really fine. And he said, you're not only getting powder, you're getting pellets. you're getting rocks, you're getting boulders, and you're getting Volkswagens. That means you can, sometimes in those reactors that have gone bad, they have to get in there with a jackhammer to break it up. And that is very contaminated with vinyl chloride, and they wash it out. And the main reason they do that is because they are focused on production, and you get fined by the company if you don't make the production goals, and you just do not have time to do it all the ways that they're supposed to be taken care of. This again is more the photographs. Here is the unit, and you can see it's PVC powder all over it. It's all over the ground. It's on all of the rafters. Over here is the upset, and that's the biggest vacuum truck they had to pick up this one spill. And like I said, he said this happened about once a week. And they had loaded it 3 times, and on the 3rd time, it blew out a tire. So that's the reason that is. And again, this is the top of the SPVC unit covered in plastic. And you can see the river, kind of Cox's Creek out there, and it just blows everywhere. This stuff blows everywhere. This is a close-up of, this is the bank, like a river, like you have out here in the bank. It's covered in pellets and powder. Again, this is on the plants. You know, the aquatic vegetation. It's covering the plants. And if you pick it up, you know, like you pick up some of that aquatic vegetation, and sometimes their roots are a foot long. The pellets are embedded in those roots. It looks like a little piece of jewel, actually. To get some of our samples, we go down the creek, go to the bay, and we would use a pool net. That's a pool net. And you put it in, and you get pellets. This is, again, what I was talking. This is the roots of aquatic vegetation. You see those little things? They're embedded all in that root system. And this, again, is the powder. And like I said, imagine your beaches out there where the kids are swimming, out there where you got seabirds, the rosette spoonbills, the whooping cranes, the pelicans. This is it. And nobody was cleaning it up. It was just out there. And these were some of my workers. There's up here on the far left, it's Ronnie, and he was the shift supervisor of the PVC unit. And he worked there for 25 years, and he said the alarms for vinyl chloride, and again, 1 part per million, cancer causing, possibly brain tumors, liver cancer. It was going off every hour, on the hour, of leaks that they could not even had the time to take care of. They were either ignoring them, turning off the alarm, or they were wrapping them with duct tape. They were sticking earplugs into them. That was happening in the PVC unit. Down here below was where we were finding pellets all in the water. As you see, when we started doing collecting pellets near Formosa's stormwater discharge, they put that fence line out there, barbed wire fence out there to keep us out. That says private, posted. But we went all over that place. And also over there on the far right was one of my workers who was an instrumental whistleblower, and he's showing, and he got fired too. So they all got fired. Most of it ended up getting a divorce. They were all blackballed. They never got a job again. And these are some of my, I think we collected over 2,500 samples. And they were just incidences that we did on separate days for 2.5 years. 2,500 for the lawsuit. I put them in these little plastic, containers, and that was a goat trailer, and I put it on a goat trailer, and I hauled it to court, and we tried to put it through the security. Can you imagine? Yes, they had a fit when we tried to throw it through security. Anyway, this is the lawsuit that we won. And like I said, it took me 35 years to get here. I got my lawyers. You think about lawyers, they were Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. It was a legal aid group. You want to get a divorce, of course you're poor, you go to legal aid. Well, this one happened to do environmental work, so they were my lawyers, and we had no money, so they did it for free. And so anyway, we won the biggest citizen suit settlement in U.S. history. It was $50 million. We got zero discharge of plastic, meaning that company cannot discharge plastic anywhere from their facility, or we will fine them. We've got monitoring, we got enforcement. Not the state, not the EPA. We got engineering, meaning if you've got a plant, 2,500 acres, 17 units, the plastic and the problems, the sources are everywhere. So you have to retrofit, engineer them to zero discharge. And we also got cleanup of the pollution, not only from their stormwater discharges, but into Matagorda Bay, which is a huge bay. And anyway, so this was our lawsuit. Oh yeah, this is cute. This one was cute. It's because we got monitoring, and because we got zero discharge of plastic, we had an attorney who was a really smart woman. So if the problem with monitoring any company is especially if it goes out into the water, and even if it goes into the air, it's like, what's your proof? Do you know exactly when? Are you sure it's mine? So there is a problem with monitoring when it's going into the water, and it's like, well, are you sure that it was this day? Are you sure that it was mine? So we had an engineer, and she developed a plan. And this is it. It's a big unit. It costs like $5 million. Ain't too much. That is not too much in big terms. And it sits right on top of Formosa's wastewater pipe before it goes into the bay. So it takes their waste stream before it's in the water, and we test 1% of it. And since June of 2021, that sampling mechanism has caught Formosa violating the plastic zero discharge 578 times, and we have fined them almost $16 million. So, one thing to keep a company from discharging is when you hit their pocketbook. It's the money that makes them start changing. And so at this point, they're having a $1 million penalty every month. And I won't doubt that it'd be up to 20 million by the end of the year. And also we are doing, because Formosa's stormwater outfalls. They had 10 of them, and they were going into this creek, or that's a creek, or it kind of looks like a river. It's like there were pellets, and they've been doing it for 27 years. So they had to do a cleanup. And so it took probably a year to devise a plan on how to clean up. And it's never been done before because, you know, there have been spills, like you talk about Sri Lanka, when the ship spilled and then it kind of went on the shoreline, and it was how to get up the pellets that were on the beach line. But how do you clean up pellets that had been impacting a bay or a water system for 26 years? They're embedded, they're in the mud, and so there had to be all of this sampling in a way, and then eventually, and it's taken a year, and it's taken $30 million to do it. This one section, 26 miles, they have went from 6 inches to 32 inches. That's how deep the pellets were. And these huge excavators are digging up the very banks, and sometimes the sediment, and they put it in a landfill. It's taken over 3,000, and the trucks are kind of like Star Wars trucks. They're not these little regular trucks. Those the big ones, 3,000 of them. And that's me over there with the hard hat. We are in a project area, so they made me wear all this gear. But that's what they did. They dug it up 26 miles. And this is interesting because they had to do zero discharge of plastics, so they can't discharge into the bay with their stormwater outfall, and they also can't discharge into the creek anymore. We're cleaning up the creek for what they did do, but we can't allow them to discharge pellets, which is still inside the plant and is still being released in the units, to go into the bay. So they have, I think, like 6 huge ponds, and they're diverting the stormwater from the different units that go into these ponds, and those ponds have cost $1 billion. So right now, they don't often discharge at the creek. Oh, I guess that's it. Or else this don't work anymore. I don't know. Anyway, any questions? Yes, sir, back there.
Curious how many of these plants there are in the country, and are they all on bodies of water?
All of them discharge eventually, like their stormwater outfall will go into a body of water, and so will their stormwater outfall. It will eventually, whether how they route it, it will eventually go there. And because like the state environmental agency regulates their permits, and it used to be the EPA, but the EPA gave it to the states, and so now it's a Texas pollutant discharge elimination system, and they pretty much, they're rubber stamped. They get it, and the thing of it is they are self-monitoring. Self-monitoring. If you got a release, and if you did your reporting, if you didn't, self-report. Formosa never reported a single violation of their plastics for 26 years. And TCEQ, the state environmental agency, never fined them one time. And so that was the reason why I could do a citizen suit. So yes, it's all going to the water, or it's going to the creeks, or these little bayous. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How many of them are there? How many of these plastic manufacturing places are there on the Gulf?
Oh God, I don't know. That I don't know. And also, you got to forget. Don't forget the plastic manufacturers, because they are getting the noodles and the pellets and the powder. that is being shipped. Like, for example, after our lawsuit, there was South Carolina. There was and it was right on the coast, and there was a plastic packaging, and the citizens, similar to y'all, found all of these plastics in the harbor, around the beaches, and so they called us and wanted to know what they could do, if they could do something similar, and they did. I think they collected samples of the plastic for, I don't know, probably like 3 months, and then they took it to court, citizen clean water suit, and they won it. So it really can be done, and I really don't know, 110, I'm thinking maybe that many. There's quite a few, and they're constantly expanding. Like, for instance, in Louisiana, Formosa, the one I've been fighting for 35 years, they're trying to build a $12 billion plastic plant right on the Mississippi River. And I know Exxon Saudi just built one on the Corpus Christi, and they just put that in, and it's the same thing. And they all put the plastic out. And like I said, like Union Carbide in our area, Union Carbide is, well, they always say it's, in our community, they say, well, that's a cut above Formosa, you know, like Formosa are really bad on their workers, and they're just rope plants, and it's like, I have went down to Union Carbide, who is so-called upper class, and went down the creek, and it was the size of a football field in length, and probably 18 feet, covered in plastic, and it's like one of the so-called best ones. Yeah, that's right.
Congratulations on winning the lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
How much time passed before you won the judgment to the point where you were able to effectively engineer a zero emissions, standard?
Well, let's see, the ruling came from the judge. Like, we had the lawsuit and won it. It was just a lawsuit, and we didn't know who won. So we had the lawsuit in March. By October, there was a ruling by the judge on liability, and they said they were a serial polluter. Their violations were enormous, and they said either the state of Texas didn't know how to enforce Formosa, or they weren't willing to. And then I think in December, we came out with a consent decree, which is real important because a lot of companies, if you file suit, you know, like some, like Sierra Club or NRDC or whatever, they file suit, and there's a lot of appeal. Well, Formosa wanted to settle with us because I think they thought we were dumb and they were going to get a better deal. They were sadly mistaken. So we sat down and made an agreement that is enforceable, which is real key. Because if it's not enforceable, the minute it gets tough, the industry will like, no, I don't think it said that. And you will, and they will start backing out, crawfishing right out of that agreement. And so every time Formosa tried to wiggle out of it, we're like, okay, dispute resolution, we're going to court. But, and so that's the way we handle it. But in February 2020, it was officially zero discharge of plastic. So that's when it became official. Yes, sir.
You started as a tripper.
Yeah.
How did this plastic impact the shrimp and the crab area?
Well, the thing of it is the plastic, and this was part of our trial, is the plastic is picking up the mercury from a mercury Superfund site. We've got Alcoa, and they use a chlor-alkali unit to do their process. and it was mercury, and mercury was just out of control. And so they put all of this mercury in the bay, and so the plastic is picking up the mercury, and so you got plastic mercury, and the plastic is just floating all over. And then it washes up on the beach, and then it washes up on a sand dune, or you find it in the marshes. And I know in the lawsuit, the judge said that Formosa's plastic discharge had definitely harmed the fisheries. And I know the combination of everything is in a crisis where it used to be, my hometown had 100 shrimp boats, and there were family fishermen, there were sustainable ones. And we had 100 boats, we had 5 fish houses. We now have maybe 3 boats, and they bulldozed all of the shrimp houses. There is none. And for a shrimper to sell his shrimp, he's got to put it in his truck, get the ice from Walmart, and go sit out on the road and try to sell it. Yes, ma'am.
So how did you get the court or the state to approve of zero discharge of pellets or powder? Because there's not a national standard.
That's right. That's right.
There's no national standard. So did Texas regulate?
No. The way we could enforce it, go after their violations, it was floating solids. So it was trace amounts of floating solids, and we proved it's plastic, but they were floating solids, and there's a regulation in the permit, you can't have floating solids. And so that's what we put the violations on, and that's how the federal judge made a ruling they were liable. But we went into a settlement with Formosa, our group, the waterkeeper and myself personally, as a fisherwoman, and we told Formosa that's what we wanted, zero discharge.
The judge or the state put the zero discharge into the NPDES permit?
Yeah, and so now, and we made them implement it into their water permit, so it is in their water permit. And right now, the state of Texas even came out and it's like, should we do zero discharge? And so there was a big, a lot of comments were put out, and I think Formosa and a lot of industry came up with, they were just scared to death of that. And it's like, no, we don't want that. And so I know Texas legislature even had some bills out on zero discharge, and there is national bills out on zero discharge.
Yeah, but they haven't been, there's bills, but there's...
No, it hasn't made their way through. But we got it with Formosa. And there's ways of monitoring, and there's ways to do it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as a retired lawyer, first of all, I commend
Oh.
you for what you have done. It's amazing what you pulled off.
Thank you.
That is refreshing.
Thank you.
You indicated that there have been 500 violations after they cleaned up the...
That's right.
Is it still ongoing with the daily violations?
Oh yeah, it's every time our little wastewater sampling mechanism tests them. Every time they're in violation, it's like they're having one heck of a time getting the plastic out of. And that's why I'm saying, someone not too long ago, one of the environmentalists in Texas, they said, how many powder and pellet spills are going on out there? And I'm like, if they're a plastic plant, it's ongoing all the time, and they just don't acknowledge it. It's just going out.
Has the company basically said, this is the cost of pollution?
No, they're crying because...
I'm surprised they haven't gotten shut down if you had any...
Oh, I guarantee you, if we were in another place, we could. If we were in another place, I think we could have told them they would have had to shut down. But here it's like state of Texas, state, federal legislation, and all the agencies. It's like there is a real fight, because if they have a permit fight, and it's like you look at their environmental record, it'll say good. That's what it'll say. And it's like you won't be allowed to bring up their enforcement record, and it's like as plain as you can see, but that's kind of the way it is. And I know like with Formosa, when we started the zero discharge, the first year it was $15,000. Every time they violated it, it was $15,000. If they did it in both bays, the creek and the bay, then it was $30,000. So you doubled it. Next year it was 20, then it was 25, then it was 35, and this year it's max. It's like $65,000 a day, and that's when Formosa started crying. They're like, "Oh, you can't be that mean to us. Just lower it, lower it, lower it." I'm like, "Hell no, I ain't gonna do that. No." Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if there's been any studies about elevated cancer risk. You said this is 26 years.
That is one thing we've been trying to do. Because I work a lot with the workers, and they have, especially the vinyl workers, they have a lot of brain cancer, they have a lot of liver cancer, they got all kinds of cancer in that facility, and there was so much concern about the workers from the vinyl chloride of the brain cancer because they had knots on their heads and they were afraid to go to a doctor because they thought they were going to be diagnosed with brain cancer. So even the plant heard about it, and matter of fact, I got a copy of the email, so that's why I know all this. And so they brought in a study that was was financed by the Vinyl Institute, and you know what it said, and it said, there is no evidence vinyl chloride causes brain cancer, and probably the barbecue they ate. Really, front page on the Victoria Advocate. It's barbecue, not industry, barbecue. Yes, yeah. So right now that is major on our, and yes, it's a big issue. Yes, back there.
With the headline today in the New England Journal of Medicine on microplastics, doubling stroke, heart attack, and all kinds of, and premature death.
Right.
But other than that, it's just fine.
Yeah.
Are they doing any studies in your area on heart, cardiovascular system? Or maybe this is going to spawn a bunch.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will come. But right now we're fixing to have a health study on people eating all the fish contaminated with mercury. Because we got a mercury Superfund sign that says closed, don't take the mercury, and people are sitting down there taking big old redfish. God knows what kind of mercury levels are in those. And it was just fine and dandy. As some of the city managers will say, you'll have more trouble choking on a bone than you will eating that redfish with mercury in it. That's what they tell us.